was a normal summer night. I was at the park with my friends playing soccer. It was getting a little late, a little past 12 o'clock midnight. That's when I decided to start walking home. I lived about 20 minutes away from the park, so I didn't think too much of it. As I was walking, I had an eerie feeling someone was following me. I didn't pay too much attention until I started hearing footsteps in the distance. I turned around and yelled, "Who's out there?" No response. Kept on walking, trying not to let it bother me. A few more steps down the street and I heard someone whisper, "Don't run." Before I knew it, I was sprinting as fast as I could, not really paying attention to what was in front of me. I bumped into a group of teens that were in the middle of the sidewalk just talking and gathered up. They seemed annoyed with me. A couple of them started pushing me around, and that's when one pushed me all the way to the floor. At this point, I was not really paying attention to the person that was stalking me. I was more upset about the group of teens that pushed me down to the floor. And that's when I looked down the street. I could see a shadow, looked like a man, running towards us at full speed. As fast as I could, I got up and I tackled one of the teens to the floor, just so I can try to get away. I was running again, running as fast as I can. My eyes were closed, but I can tell that I was running in a straight line. I didn't want to turn around, I didn't want to hear anything. I was so frightened. That's when I heard someone say, "Don't run, I'm not bad." I took a quick glance as I turned. Noticed it wasn't a man, but a woman. She was tall. She tried to grab me from the back when I was running, and I just turned back around and I started running as fast as I can. Eventually I saw my house. Got to my front door. I noticed it was locked. "Dang," I said. Quickly, I went around back and I jumped my fence, hoping the back door was open. "Yes," I said as it was opened. When I opened the door, I turned and I saw the woman. She let out the most horrific yell that I've ever heard. It's with me till this day. I quickly slid in and I closed the door, locked it. I told my parents what had happened, and they immediately called the police. We waited there in silence. I was the most shaken up, crying in my mom's arms. We heard the sirens in the distance get louder and louder. Eventually, it sounded like they were at the end of the block. That's when we heard a loud bang. We all looked at each other, confused. What was that? When the police came to the front door, they explained to my parents what had happened. The lady that was following us shot herself with her gun. I think about this every day. What if she did catch on to me? What would have happened to me if I would have been caught? I'm just grateful I was able to get away. My name is Derek. I'm 22 years old. And this is my story of when I thought I heard the wailer, or La Llorona. I was 9 or 10 years old and me and my parents were home, along with our friend that lived with us and his wife and 16-year-old daughter. Out of nowhere, my dad brought up the idea of going to the casino to see if they can win anything. It was pretty late too, it was about 2 o'clock in the morning. Surprisingly, my mom and our friend that lived with us and his wife said yes. So they all started getting ready. My parents' friend's 16-year-old daughter was going to stay with us, babysitting us basically. Her name was Maria. Her parents were saying, "Thank you for taking care of the kids while we're out. Make sure everything's safe and make sure they go to bed on time since it is a little bit late." As soon as they left, we went ahead and we locked all the doors, making sure everything was safe. And that's when Maria said, "It's time to go to bed." Me and my brother looked at each other and said, "Okay." We started getting ready for bed. We had a bunk bed, so we didn't want to go to sleep by ourselves. Me and my brother agreed to sleep on the top bunk bed while Maria slept on the bottom. and everything was peaceful at first. It wasn't until 3 o'clock in the morning when we heard a weeping woman. Started off pretty soft. We didn't think anything of it. As soon as it got louder, we all immediately woke up, jumped out of bed. Maria quickly told us to all get on the bottom bunk bed and not to think anything of it. At this point, my brother was crying and we were trying to make him stop, but he was really frightened. So was I and Maria. Even though she didn't want to admit it, I can tell by her facial expressions that she didn't know what to do. The sounds got louder of the weeping woman, eventually sounding like she was outside our door, which would have made it impossible since we locked the whole house down. We didn't know what to do, and then Maria said, "Let's all put our hands together and pray." So we followed her. She told us what to say, how to say it. Eventually, the weeping cries just went away. Even though it happened when I was 9 or 10, I still think about it to this day. It's something that's always on the back of my mind because how frightened I was, my little brother, and Maria being older than us. I'm just thankful we all were safe and sound. I was around 4 or 5 years old, and I was laying down right next to my mom on her bed watching the TV. She would leave it on until I fell asleep, and then she'd turn it off. But this is about my dream that I had that night. That awful dream. In my dream, I was still laying next to my mom and everything looked normal. Until I saw the closet door open. It had blood coming down from it. I didn't know what to do. I got a little closer to my mom, watching the blood fall. Eventually, it stopped falling, and the door opened up a little bit more. I got frightened, so I went under the blankets and I hugged my mom. I was shaking uncontrollably, at the same time trying to wake up my mom. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if it was a dream or if it was real. It was so real. I didn't know. I was confused. The door eventually stopped opening, and I peeked my head out the blanket to see what was going on. I could see a figure. This thing looked like a person, really tall. Must have been 6 feet, if that. He had a black jacket and a black cowboy hat. As crazy as it seems, I can hear him smiling. Not see him, but hear him smiling. He didn't move towards me. He was just standing there, smiling at me. He was pretty far, a good distance, so I kept trying to wake up my mom, but she didn't wake up. All of a sudden I could see it walking towards me, getting a little closer and closer. I was so terrified. I started screaming as loud as I can. My throat was hurting. That's the crazy part. That's the part that I never understood. If it was a dream, why was my throat so sore? Eventually, it was right next to me. It grabbed me and pulled me up, closer to his face. I can finally see what it was. As close as I can compare it to, it looked like the monster from the movie Jeepers Creepers. He looked like the guy from the movie. Did everything like the guy. I was really scared, and I still didn't know what to do. I was still yelling and screaming, trying to fight it off. I couldn't. Then he took me outside. I saw big wings, big ones, come out of his back as he flew away with me. I was in the air for a little bit, and he took me to his lair. That's all I can think it was. I saw other bodies. I could only assume they were dead. Everywhere. Just like in the movie. He put me on the table and locked me down. I could see him pick up a knife, sharpening it. I was praying. I didn't know what to do. I was terrified. As he came towards me, he stabbed my stomach. At that very instinct, I woke up. I was sweating. I was shaking. Everyone in my family was all around me. I was crying. Then I looked to my mom and I told her what had happened. She said it was just a bad dream. And I thought, thank God.